Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's version of xLights Gem session on seed pixel matrix design and construction and how to set them up in xLights. It'll be presented by Mark Butcher. With that, thank you, Mark, for doing this, and take it away.
All right, yep, and you're welcome. And yeah, I'm happy to do this. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about a seed pixel matrix that I built for my garage door. And I guess a few of the things we'll discuss if it want to works. I'll discuss what I built. We'll go over some advantages and disadvantages of using seeds. I certainly don't know all of them, but I will at least give you, my opinion on those. Um, I'll go a little bit into the design, the X-Lights modeling, and then we'll cover some questions. So here's the overall view of what my finished product ended up with, and it was entirely 3D printed. Um, I have to give thanks to Daryl Irwin, who's here. He came up with the original design. I think he found it someone else was using, and Daryl can correct me if I'm wrong. They were using like some aluminum stock for these horizontals, and maybe some 3D printed clips, and he came up with a way to totally 3D printed. So, like anything in this hobby, we borrow and other people's ideas and, make them our own. And so this is what I came up with. We'll give a few close-up shots now. So here's the top. And if you can see over here, these are actually, I put magnets on the top section. So, I got two magnets per every one of these bars, and that held up great. I was trying to find a way to mount it super easy on the door. Um, and that worked out. That worked out great. I'm pleased with how that came out. Just another view of the magnets. I guess while I'm here, I can also talk about. So the way this works is there's two bars, and there's a little hole slot here that the seeds fit through, and then they just nudge in, and I there's these pins here that help hold it together, and then like I said, I made these little design these little screw threads with the that I screwed a magnet to it and held it in place. Let me go jump back to here. So we were just looking at this top bar, and then there's obviously there's a bottom bar, and there's these two middle bars are just sort of stabilizer bars to help keep the seeds from twisting. So that's just a close up of the middle one. It's not much different than the other one. It's a little thinner than the top bar, and then here's the bottom bar. In this case, it's the same size. And to get my spacing to work out, you can see we had to have this extra pixel hanging out to go it around. These are 2-inch spacing seeds, or I should say, I think 50 mil seeds, right? 50 millimeter seeds. And the horizontal spacing we want is just slightly under 2 inches. I think it's 45 millimeters. Um, I designed these little clips to hold the X or the pigtail here to keep it from flopping around too much. If you do this, the important thing is you want to make sure you leave. You can see here I have a little bit of slack here because what happens when the garage door goes up um, is it bends and goes over. It wants to pull this up. So if you have these fixed tight or secured down at the bottom, it's going to stretch or rip your seed. So you got to make sure you got a count for that. And the way I actually decided where to put these was I put the matrix in the door in the up position and then put this on here and came up with it. So this is on the inside of the garage door. I mounted a controller box to this bottom rail. Again, 3D printed some clips to help with wire management. And yeah, here's just another one showing you more as they come down. Same thing, just clips to keep these I had to add to help keep the little garage door sensor from, these wires from flinging out and catching it and causing some issues with that. So that's all the pictures I have. I'm going to. So it was all designed to just maybe give people a little bit better idea on some of the design. So it was designed in using Fusion 360, which is it's free for hobbyists. It doesn't cost anything. But this is one of the main bars. So you print two of these and flip one on top of the other inverse. You can see here's the recessed channel. Um, and then this is, let me click here, turn you off. So this is the clip. This clip is the part that secures the, secures them together. And then we come down here. This is the little pin that helps, again, just secure everything together. It's flat on one side. So when you're printing, you got to wait to lay it down because it's and to make it printable. That worked out good. The I actually can leave the pin on for here. So this is the middle bar. It's just a little bit thinner, but it's the same concept. You use two of these each. Um, there's the clip for the middle, and then I have the nut in the bolt that screwed through, and then this is where this bottom surface is where the magnet went to. So I designed this to fit. This bar will fit diagonally on an Ender 3 bed. I could actually fit three of them practically touching, but I was able to get three printed on an Ender 3 bed, which is like 220. That's where I came up with the size. So, but if anybody is if anybody's interested in these files or STLs of them, I can just reach out to me. I can certainly, you're more than welcome to share and like I said, and see what you guys can do with it as well. So, all right, let's go back to, yeah, before we go to xLights, let's just do this. Let's go. All right, so these are at least some of the advantages, at least that I see. The seed pixels, they're definitely lighter than your bullet pixels. And in my case, I don't have the mesh that or the that it would have on the door. Um, one of my personal requirements for this was that the garage door had to be operable, and it was. And then if you put on traditional bullet pixels with the mesh, it's going to weigh quite a bit. You're probably going to have to adjust your garage door spring, which isn't something you should do on your own. It's pretty dangerous, or you're going to be really stressing out your garage door opener, or it's going to be difficult to open and close the door. It's going to be out of balance. Um, they have less power requirements. They're not as power hungry. Um, and actually, I was running close to almost 500 pixels off 12 volt seeds off of one port. I had planned on I was going to power balance, put power in at the beginning and the end, but I did not need to do that in my case. And significantly less storage area. That whole garage matrix just rolls right up, and I can carry the whole thing, and it's tiny. It takes up. I have some 3 by it's like 70-ish 2-inch spacing column matrices with it in the mesh, and that entire seed matrix takes up about the same space as storage as one of those columns. So that's a huge advantage that I see. A couple of disadvantages. It's definitely thinner wire. When they first came out, they were really thin, and it was difficult to solder. Some of the newer ones now they might advertise. You'll see they might advertise 22 gauge or 20 gauge. They really can't get much thicker than that because the pixel's only so wide. But it's a thinner wire. It's a little bit difficult to solder. Definitely can be harder to repair because of the small space between the pixels, especially if you go something smaller than 2 inches or 50 mil, if you're down to 25 mil spacing, that's going to be It's if something goes out, it's going to be a challenge to try and replace that. I'm sure it can be done, but I just something to be aware of. And then I'd say, the long-term reliability is unknown. We haven't, had these in the hobby for that long, so um, we'll see. I put mine up before Halloween and ran it, through Halloween, all through Christmas, and then I didn't take it down probably until because I was out of town right after Christmas till sometime the end of February. So it stayed up the whole time, and I tested at the end, and it all worked. So I could say at least it held up for one season. We'll see what happens when I take it out next year. But again, your mileage may vary. So let's look at xLights and actually let me go back to. I'm going to pull this back over here. I think this will push it. So you can see in my case, I have one spare pixel every so often, or at the top of every row. And then on the bottom, let's see if we can make this there. Where I come in, it's good. But if you see right here is an ending one, right? When I end, here I had one in the middle. I don't have an extra pixel at the very end, or seed. So we just have to account for that when we create our xLights model. Um, And the easiest way to do it, and I had forgotten how I did this until just a few minutes ago, so thanks for the boys in the Zoom room reminding me what I did. We do a custom model, which is this little face here, and we'll just click and drag or get something here, and we'll call this seed matrix. So then we have to have, where'd you go? There you are. So if I go into the model data here, all it's given us is this little 5 by 5 grid. And we know our matrix is going to be much bigger than that. So I'm just going to go say 400 by 100 just to give myself some room. And all right, so now we could come in here and say, yeah, I have pixel 1 here and 2 here and 3 here and start to slowly build out our model. But that's going to take forever, especially if you've got, you know, a large matrix. So what you can do, I'm going to have to cancel this. Yes, is you can use Excel and you can create your layout in here. So in my case, I started here. So there's my pixel 1. And now I skipped every other row. And my thinking behind this was, and I'll show you when we get to top. So I go up, I've got 39 pixels. Then there's that odd pixel. And then I come over to the top. And since I wanted to model this odd pixel, since I was skipping a row, and these are roughly 2 inches apart in real life, I figured if I skipped a row here, it would sort of give me a relative size, and this was a little closer. And then the first column here is all hand numbered coming up. This is hand numbered, and this is all manually numbered coming down to here. And then here's pixel 80. Once I got here, I came out with some formulas, and depending on what you have and how you're doing it, but that basically allowed me to drag and drop and carry it all the way over to my last one, which is 3,839. So what we want to do is just once whatever your grid is or whatever your matrix is, and you get it modeled. We're just gonna go ahead and select it all in Google Sheets would work for this. You don't have to have Excel. Uh, just going to copy this. Go back into xLights. We'll go back into the seed matrix. We want to go back into our model data and edit that. And I got to re-put my width back in. So we say 400 by 100 is going to be more than enough. I'm just going to cup in this first cell here, and I'm going to right click and hit paste. And so now that brought in all my numbers for me. But you can see we've got extra space at the bottom and extra space at the right, which is going to throw off the render buffer. So we can just do right click and trim unused space. And that will shrink it down. And now we have, yeah, a matrix model that looks pretty much like it does in real life. So depending on your preferences, right? We got these extra pixels hanging out at the top and the bottom. Um, we can create a submodel and then to make it look more like a traditional matrix. So we'll come down to submodels. Same thing. We're going to click to edit, and we'll add down here, and we will call this. We'll just call this matrix sub, at least for here. But you could call it whatever you wanted. And we could come in and type node ranges and everything, but that's the hard way. If we click on sub buffer, what we can do is these four corners here represent the four corners of this view over here. So if we just take this corner and drag it down ever so slightly and keep the width the same, you can see that top row just got deselected. So now it's going to be excluded this from our submodel. And we do the same thing when we come up this way. All right, so now our submodel looks much more like a traditional matrix. We hit OK, and we'll hit save. So that's how we model it. I'll demonstrate why you might want to do that, I guess, we just added that model, so it's not in my master view, but we'll bring them over. All right, so so in this case, if we just put an on effect on, make this as big as I can for you guys. Right, you can see it's lighting up everything. And if we come down to the sub, now it's got the crisp edges like we would think. Now, a lot of effects, and to be honest, I ran pretty much every sequence. On my house, I just left it like this. I didn't do it on the sub model. There's a few effects where it could certainly help, and one of those for certain is the marquee effect here. So let me just stretch this out. So it actually looks pretty good when you do. Let me make the band size a little bit bigger here. Okay, see, it looks good here, but what happens if you can see it's using those outside pixels, so it's not giving us the solid line. Where if we put it on, if we move this down to the submodel level, now we're getting the same consistency because it's using the outside lines. If you get thicker, something like this, that looks good here, but it doesn't look horrible here. So it's not, it's really all about what you want. There's a ton of different ways to do things in this hobby, and whatever works for you, that's the right way. And I knew this was going to be a fairly quick presentation, so at this point, if anybody's got questions or comments, let's fire away.
Can you talk a little bit about how many ports you used and why
Oh,
or
yeah, I
anything?
built
Good.
it in this one. Yeah, that's a good question. Sure. Let me stop. Um, All right, so this is the matrix on the actual house. Um, and so all right, yeah, so when you first set it up, it's going to come in as one string. I ended up using 8 ports, so I'm using 479 per port. So originally I had to come in and change this number to 8, and then click this little thing that says individual start nodes, and then tell it I want to start on port one, or you know, it starts on pixel one. The second uh, port two starts at 480, 959, and that's just I just got those numbers from. Actually, it's probably better to look at. Probably be easier to see in node layout. Come on, there we go. So you can see here's 479 is the last one on strand one, and then strand two starts at 480, and then strand three starts at 459. So I wanted to design it so everything started at the bottom. And Daryl brings another good point is before you totally build your matrix and wire it, build it in xLights first to make sure it can be built it can be built and that you're building it in the best way. So you can get it modeled. The matrix is pretty easy. Um, it's very, not as complicated. Sometimes people, try to wire up mega trees a little bit different, and that can be challenging. But it's best practice to wire it up. And why I chose 8 ports, I did some testing, and like I said, I was able to run just about 500. That was my plan, was to run 500 per port. Um, partly to keep under so I could keep up at 40 frames per second. I know I could do a little bit more than that. And yeah, I had originally planned, like I'd said, to bring power in at the end. But I was pleasantly surprised that I did not need to for these particular seeds. These are 12 volts.
So one of the biggest things people ask when they do these sort of things is how good is the image? Obviously not as good as projector, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, it's not as good as a projector. I felt it at 2 inch. It was from the street, and the garage door is probably 60, 65 feet from the street. For the type of even like the what's the we had the xLights around the world like Frozen, even the video, you could tell what it was. I mean, it's not crisp by any imagination, but you could recognize it. Or uh, the other one that goes around, there's the Lion King video with that's got the shadows moving across the screen and everything. Like part of it, they use the actual Lion King video, and you can see it. It's there, but it's not it's yeah, it's not crisp, but for me it's good enough. And um I used to have a projector. I replaced it with this for a couple of reasons. One is didn't have a great way to mount the projector above the house or above the garage door to shine down, so I always had to have it set out in the driveway. It was a short throw projector that projected out the top, so it wasn't really possible for me to weatherproof. So I'd have to set it up every night and only could have it out there when weather permitting. And then if we were going to be leaving, I didn't want to leave projector necessarily sitting out there if nobody's home. And so for a lot of reasons, I abandoned the projector and went to this, and I'm happy with the decision. So.
We got a couple questions in chat.
All right.
John wants to know, do you have any pixel failures your first year running it?
I did not, and um, we'll knock on wood there. And let me bring back the PowerPoint here. I did plan potentially to have failures. So let me see. This is all right. So the way these go together, and I wish I could claim that I planned this in advance, is each four of these across makes up one port. And so I actually made up another one spare panel. So if something went bad, I could just, and it's just because I had extra pixels, and I made one spare panel. So if something went bad, I could just come out here, pop off this group of four, and slap the new one in, and then try to figure out how to fix it. But I did not have any problems the first year. And the garage door went up and down, virtual, a couple times a day, like I said, from October through the end of February. So
Okay. Yeah.
the only hassle I had was with this handle here. Next year, I'm going to move this middle bar up one slot because what would happen as the garage door went up, it moved up. And when it lowered down, sometimes this bar would catch right on this top little metal edge of the handle, and then it would just sit there. You would not think it would do it, but virtually every time it did. So I would have to, you know, before showtime, I have to go out there and knock it down.
Okay.
And then let me see, was there another question in chat?
Yeah, yeah, there's a couple. And it says, not sure I missed it, but what gauge wire are seeds? The heavier gauge wire seeds are typically 20 gauge. They're
Yeah,
actually like a
they
22,
claim.
but they call them 20.
Yeah, these were called 20. And that's what I used. Um, and I used three wire. I contemplated using the four wire with the redundant data. The trade-off to that is because the seed is only so thick. When they go to four wire, the wire they can't get as thick wire in
Yep.
on all four. Just it's physically impossible, right? Because they're limited by the size. So I think um, so I took the trade-off of better thicker wire for better power than. And actually, I lied, right? It's actually only two of these panels per port. Actually, you can see right here. There's one, two. So so two per port. It worked out, and eight ports fit across the garage. And I got lucky with my math because, like I said, I built these originally just is to maximize what I could fit on the bed of my printer. But
Okay. Next question is how many pixels can go on a port? That's a little subjective, Mike. Um,
it is. Like I said, I got what did I on this I can say with mine I was able to do 479 without without doing any sort of um, dealing with any sort of power injection, power
Mhm.
balancing, whatever you want to call it. Um,
At what percent brightness you running that, Mark? You run at a 30% brightness or
it's
is I run
layout.
um my window matrices are the same way this is built, and I have 600 and about 670 on a port at 30% with no power injection or balance.
You sacrifice a little bit of the crisp white, but otherwise you can't tell.
So I ran it 25%.
Yeah, yeah. Next question is also, can the same mounting system be used for a window matrix on PVC? Yes. I can attest to that. And Mike, if you remember at my house when you were here, that's how mine are. I use those same bars, that same 3D printed bars is what you saw when I showed you my window matrices.
Yeah, and I am actually contemplating because I have PVC frames around the outlines for my windows of switching to this at least maybe for my lower windows and do matrices on them just to give you some more density and like I said, this thing, like I said, I just took apart each port and rolled it up, and it's so small, it would take up way less space than my frames. Um, so that's something I'm contemplating. Haven't
Can you
fully
put
pulled the
magnets
trigger.
on, can you put magnets on the outside of your window and then put a washer or something on the inside? Would that work or would it just slide down?
No,
I guess probably
typically
not because
no.
because you're going to have most of the windows either double or triple pane. They're going to have an air
Right.
gap between them. But maybe
Yeah.
like I don't know if like a suction cup would work,
Yeah, the
perhaps.
suction cup would work. Yeah.
Um,
I have my PVC frame, I 3D printed clips that hold on to the J channel, and it just snaps on around the window.
yeah. So actually, if you can see in
Just
this
like you
picture,
have, right? Yeah.
this is little clips. I changed my garage outline to seeds last year because I had J channel and I had some part of the J channel broke, and I didn't want to re-drill J channel, so
With
this worked great. It's just
with
little
seeds
clips.
being so much lighter than pixels, you got a lot more options for mounting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
like actually, I could probably show you, and I think
Mark, do you have a video of all of
I
any of this thing in
I
action or no?
don't have a video, unfortunately. I should have. I mean, yeah, I was busy this, and I didn't get around to videoing. So this is, and I think Andy gave me this design, but
yeah,
this is the basically the little clip for the that holds in to the J channel. Or is it this one? I don't remember which one I used. I think they're the same, but
yeah.
yeah, just it's it's handy. So yeah, or maybe I'll just do the windows with J little clips like this and get rid of my PVC frames.
Hmm.
Just because, just at this point, it's more about trying to
Yeah.
trying to minimize storage area than
Uh, the next question we have is where's a good place to get seed pixels? Any of your reputable vendors should be able to get you seeds. Your Pixel store, Pixel Now, Wally's, Wired Watts, they pretty much all of them carry seed pixels now.
yeah. At the time, I got mine through uh through Ray Wu through Ally, but
Ally
if
Express or Ray Wu's store, yeah.
but I would not go with the current situation. I wouldn't do that right now
Right.
because you don't know what if you're gonna get hit with extra bonus. And at the time, I wanted white wire for my door. I couldn't, that wasn't available in there wasn't any vendors that had what I needed. But yeah, I would definitely probably go with any of your big
Yeah.
vendors if they have what you need.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's a brought a big, a couple big spools of it and just, cut them off and was able to get the pigtails. And in my case, I only had to solder 8 times, so it was or 8 locations, so only 24 solders, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Any other questions, Mark? Anything? Okay, I guess we're good there. Thank you, Mark. That was great.
So yeah, and yeah, Mark M talked
How
about,
bright? 25% he ran his at. I
yep,
run mine at 30. Yep.
25%. It was plenty bright.
Yeah. On a matrix, when they're that close together and that large of a spread, sometimes the less output looks better. It doesn't wash out and get overly bright. All right. Thank you, Mark. With that, I'm gonna stop.
All right, you're welcome.